What's up, guys? It's Drifts and Lifts here. Alright, so I figured it's been a little while since I did kind of a tech video. I'm doing a turbo swap on Turbo Scott's car right now, and I figured I'd film the whole process and show you guys how I do that. Yeah, so this is Turbo Scott's car. You guys have seen this in a couple of my videos if you've been watching. So pretty good car. We picked this up for Scott for 700 bucks. Pretty good deal. It needed a bit of tranny work. The clutch was gone in it. We put a new clutch in it, so that's all good. The car drives awesome, but you know, when we first got it, it was smoking out the exhaust when you let it idle for a bit, and under boost, so that's a pretty dead giveaway that it's a turbo. And just recently, as Scott's been driving it and, you know, ripping on it a bit, the turbo has actually stopped spooling, so now it's only making like, you know, like 4 pounds of boost. Before he had it running at about 14 pounds. That's what these stock turbos can kind of take. So clearly that's a dead giveaway. The bearings are shot in the turbo. It's not spooling. Something's locking up in there. So what I'm going to be doing is, while Scott's at work here, he's like, hey man, you don't have a job, I'll pay you to do this turbo swap. And I have a 15G sitting on the shelf over there that we're going to put in this. So this will actually be kind of a 15G conversion video. It's not going to be just a turbo replacement video. In Scott's car right now, this is the Garrett T25 turbo. So if you look, that exhaust housing, it looks a little funny. These Garretts are a little different than the Mitsubishi turbos. But yeah, this is for sure a Garrett. I've seen these turbos a couple times. They're not as common as the Mitsubishi turbos on the cars, but I have seen a couple of these Garretts. So from what I believe, the oil lines are going to be a little bit different. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you guys a step by step how I do this. So yeah, I guess we'll get started here. First I'll show you guys this. Here's the turbo that we're going to be swapping in. So there's the 15G. This is actually from Cole's wagon that we parted out. So that was that white, we called it the tofu wagon. So Cole, because I parted it out for him, and he gave me the turbo because he already had a 15G on his new car that he bought. So these turbos are a little better than the Garrett that is on Scott's car right now. If we pull this out of here, oh my stuff's falling everywhere. Volvo parts everywhere, man. So yeah, let's bring this turbo over here. All right, so what do we got? That's cool. The wastegate actuator is already hooked up, which is sweet. This turbo's in good shape. So these 15G turbos, they're a pretty good, kind of like a factory upgrade. This turbo would have came off an 850 turbo. So it's a 5-cylinder car, right? So it makes a little bit more power from the factory. Like those cars made 220 horsepower, whereas the red block only made 162 actually horsepower. So it flows better. It's got a bigger exhaust housing. The outlet is I believe this is a 3-inch. I could be wrong though. Maybe, no, it looks like a 3-inch to me. Yeah, so it's bigger on the outlet. The wastegate's bigger. The compressor housing is also quite a bit bigger. Actually, not really. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. The compressor housing compared to this Garrett turbo isn't too much bigger, but all in all, it's a better flowing turbo. We have it in the garage right now. This was rebuilt at one point, so this will last a long time. Scott doesn't have to worry about that. So now, if you're swapping, if your car has a 13C turbo, so the TD04 13C, you're gonna most likely, generally the oil lines and coolant lines will fit on this 15G turbo. It's all actually the same center housing. It's a TD04 center housing, so these oil lines and coolant lines should be the same, as long as your car is a 13C. So that makes it pretty easy. This 15G also bolts up to a factory 90 manifold, so the flange is the exact same. You don't got to worry about that. The only thing you got to do is, I guess I should show you guys that, is you're going to want to clock this turbo. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to take this out. Hold on a minute. Okay, I'm not an expert at this, but because the 850s are in a different kind of configuration, the compressor housing on an 850 is actually rotated around like that. So I believe you take this off, and once you take that off, the center section will separate from the exhaust housing. There's going to be a small little pin, and it's basically a centering pin. It kind of just pokes into the center housing, and it makes it so it doesn't spin at all, right? You don't actually need that to hold it in place. Like this clamp right here will hold it perfectly fine. So what you do is you take that off and you actually grind that little pin down so it's not stuck in that one spot, and you rotate the whole turbo until you get this compressor housing pointing upwards like the factory turbo was, right? Because then you can run your stock intercooler, because the compressor housing will be coming out this way. You can run this stock turbo tube, and that's not a big problem. So these turbos are a good little kind of budget swap, I like to say. You can find them in junkyards for, you know, $100 generally from a wrecker, that kind of thing. So yeah, 15G, TD04 15G is a good kind of stock upgrade for a lot of people. 15G for life. The coolant lines are the same, I believe, so we shouldn't really have a problem with that. We might have to kind of loosen them up to get everything sort of straightened and that sort of thing. Another detail is for the 15G, you'll see here, you're going to have to make a wastegate actuator bracket. So luckily Cole already did that for me because he had this on his car. So see, he kind of pieced together some stuff. It'll work for now. Oh man, it's smoky out here. I don't know if you guys know, but I'm in BC, Canada, and we're having crazy wildfires everywhere, like all around the province. And if you look, it literally smells like a campfire everywhere. Like there's so much smoke in the air. Literally my truck this morning, I came out and there's like ash all over it. Like, see this? All this ash everywhere. It's literally floating over from the forest fires, and they're not too far away now, which is getting kind of sketchy. We'll be fine, that's all right. We have human air filters for a reason, like your nose and stuff. So those will be working overtime. Anyways, so what's another thing? The stock downpipe, I'm just trying to get all the things, swapping over to a 15G, I'm trying to, you know, let you guys know all the little details before I get into it. All the things that you're gonna have, like the turbo oil return is gonna have to be, like, basically Cole just took a flex tube. What we're probably gonna end up doing is cutting Scott's hard line at the bottom and then sliding this over and clamping it here and here. It's probably what we're gonna do. I've done that on other cars. It doesn't leak as long as you have a good clamp on there. It's not under pressure, so you don't gotta worry about, like, you know, pressurized lines, that kind of thing. So yeah, I guess we'll get started here. Oh yes, sorry, one more thing. Downpipe. So this is the downpipe I'm going to be using on Scott's car here. It's got a flex pipe in it. So this is the actual flange from a 15G turbo. So what Cole did was took that and then welded the stock red block downpipe to it. So you can do that, or what a lot of guys will also do is you can remove these studs and weld a V-band, and you never have a leak with that. Like, I've never had a V-band leak. That's a really good way to do it. They're a little expensive, but if you're gonna, you know, be putting the effort into doing the turbo swap, I would just say go for it and do the V-band. You'll probably want to go with a 3-inch downpipe as well. Like, if you look at it, the outlet of this turbo is actually thicker than this exhaust. So this exhaust is a restriction if you think about it. I don't have the piping and all that stuff to do that on Scott's car right now, so that'll be like a later job. For now, we're just going to run that stock downpipe with the flex pipe in it. Just get them on the road, get them back spooling, and yeah, so I think I've kind of covered everything as far as the 15G conversion. This line apparently is actually, Cole ordered it off eBay. It's like a specific braided TD04 13C Volvo 740 line. So it's got just enough length to kind of get it where it needs to go. And it's got the proper size banjo bolts for the top of the 15G and that kind of thing. It's nice to go braided instead of the hard lines. The hard lines are kind of a pain to work with. So, all right guys, let's get started. So what I'm gonna do here first is take all the basic stuff off. So I'm gonna take just stuff that's going to be in the way during our job here. What I realistically should do is remove this. I probably will do that. So let's take our turbo boots off, take our inlet tube here, just move the MAF out of the way, take off our PCV line here. Let's take off our spark plug wires. Those will be in the way as well. And then we can start kind of getting to all the bolts on the manifold. I think what I'm going to do here is actually just take the manifold off with the turbo, just like we did here. Cole, I don't know what the heck he was thinking, but he actually welded the turbo to the manifold. So this is one unit now. I guess he just didn't want it to leak or something, but in the past usually I do just take the manifold off with the turbo. I found that's actually kind of easier anyways, so yeah, that's how we're going to do it. So I'm going to get to work here, guys, and I'll kind of, once I get all that stuff off, I'll get to our next step. Okay, before I go any farther, one thing I totally forgot to mention is especially if you have an 80s 740 with the old style manifold, it's older, right? It's just got more years on it, more kilometers, more heat buildup. I will say these manifold nuts and studs are very common to be completely seized on there. So if you look at this, Scott's actually, thanks to Scott, he's been lubing them up with penetrating oil for the last couple days. So it's had a pretty good head start. I think we should be good, this being a 90s car and not having too many kilometers on it. This car only has 220,000 kilometers, so fairly low. I think we're going to be good because Scott lubed them up for the last couple days. Because again, these studs and all the nuts and stuff in this exhaust section are under a lot of heat and stress. So over time that'll make stuff brittle and like to seize on. So penetrating oil is your friend. Alright, so I just sprayed some penetrating oil on these downpipe nuts, so we're going to let those soak in for a bit. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to get this car up in the air a little bit. I'm going to raise up the front, put it on jack stands, because our next step is going to be bleeding or actually draining the coolant system. Alright, so we have the coolant drained now. I let those the penetrating oil soak in on these downpipe nuts, so I actually cracked those loose. They weren't too bad. What else did I do here? Yeah, so I got my big thing out of the way. Good to go. Yeah, so I can basically start taking off the manifold nuts now. I just got these spark plug wires out of the way. So these heat shields for the spark plugs or for the spark plug wires, I guess, are kind of a pain. I never put them back on when I'm doing a turbo swap. I've never had a problem with spark plug wires melting or anything. So I wouldn't worry about them putting them back on. Next time you go to take the turbo off, if you ever have to, it's going to make it a lot easier. Always the biggest pain getting these nuts is because of these shields here. So I'm going to find the right extensions and swivel sockets and stuff to get all those. You guys are going to have to be creative with it. It shouldn't be too hard though. So once we're done that, there's also a nut on the bottom that I'm going to show you just down in here. That one people a lot of the time miss, and they're like, why is this thing still stuck to the car or to the motor? And it's always because of that one. So I'm just going to make my way. I'm going to take these 3 downpipe nuts off. I'm going to take all the manifold studs off, and I'm going to disconnect these coolant lines. So this is a soft line that goes into a hard line that runs into the turbo. Keep an eye on where these go, because these lines are all slightly different, so they're going to go in different spots. So yeah, you just gotta make sure you kind of keep an eye on what you're taking off, what goes where, and it's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to do that, guys, and then once I get all that stuff loose, then we'll get to our next step. Alright, so I got all the manifold nuts off. So if you see here, there's 8 of them in total. You want to make sure you get these little washers with them. They're like the pretty thick washers. I'm just spinning one off right here. So that's what it looks like. It's about that thick. So I got them all here. Here's all my manifold nuts. Again, keep track of where you're putting stuff. So I got the 2 downpipe nuts. So yeah, I'm just going to get all these nuts off. So now we're going to crawl under the car, and I'm going to show you guys that one last bracket, and I'm actually going to get the last downpipe nut because there's 3 of them on this flange. I'm going to get that one from the bottom as well. So I'm just going to bring just a 13 mil ratchet and my 13 mil wrench here. I'm going to bring those under, and we're going to check some stuff out. Right above that oil filter, you see that little nut there? That's the bottom bracket of the manifold. I can't actually put my hand up there because there's literally not enough room under here. It's directly right above that oil filter. It's right in the center of the camera right now. So I'm gonna have to get that one, as well as the bottom manifold stud, or sorry, the bottom downpipe flange stud. And once we have those out, theoretically the turbo should come out. Alright guys, so I just crawled under there. I was able to get the last downpipe nut off, but that bracket holding this manifold is so tight, and just the position I had to get in while crawling underneath the car there, I couldn't break it loose with my small little wrench. Unfortunately, I don't have a bigger one. I used to, but it's gone somewhere. Don't you hate that? Always losing wrenches and stuff. So now my game plan is actually I'm going to remove the turbo from the manifold. So I just took these 4 turbo to manifold nuts off. They actually came off fairly easy, which was cool. So all I got to do, the last thing that's holding it to this car and the manifold is this banjo bolt for the oil input. So I'm going to take that out, and this turbo should actually kind of slide out. As you can see, the downpipe's already loose. So let's see if we can break this off. The turbo doesn't really want to come separate from that manifold yet, but we'll get there. We'll just have to give it a tap with a hammer. So I'm going to take that manifold, or sorry, oh, I'm losing my words here. Take that banjo bolt out for the oil input and see if we can wiggle that turbo out of there. So it actually comes off super easy. Make sure you do not lose these washers, although with that being said, I have new washers on the new oil line that we're going to be using. But just in case, you might as well keep them. Just make sure it doesn't fall anywhere where it shouldn't go. So just a small little copper washer there. Leave that on the front. So now that's loose. Hopefully we can get this turbo to separate from the manifold. It looks like it's stuck on there pretty good. Maybe if we get a tap with a hammer. There we go. Broke it free. There we go. Turbo is out. And as you can see, the oil return down at the bottom there. Oh, I'm leaking coolant again. The oil return down at the bottom there kind of just pulls out. So I'll kind of go over this in a sec here, but as you can see, that's all it does is shove into the block. There is a rubber O-ring that you can't forget because you'll have a crazy oil leak. So yeah, there we go. That's a Garrett turbo, guys. These are actually pretty small. I didn't realize how tiny these things were. Okay, so now that the turbo's out of there, we can get this lower nut here. So here's a better kind of view of it. If we come down right here, there's our nut under there. So now I kind of have a little bit more room and strength to use. So let's see if I can break this loose now. There we go. So I got that nut off. That was a lot easier from the top here. In the past, I have had luck getting it from underneath and just undoing it and taking the manifold out with the turbo. But this time it was a little stuck, so we did it this way. There we go. So that came out. I'll show you guys here. There's that stud we're talking about right there. So that actually goes down into here. What I'm going to do on Scott's car is actually take that off. So there's another 2 bolts you can get at right here to actually take this out. You don't really need it. I never put them back in. It's kind of a discretion thing. Like, yes, there will be more weight on these studs. There's 8 big studs. I've never had a problem. I'm gonna do it this way. You guys can tell me otherwise. Yeah, I just don't like this bracket. It makes it a pain in the ass to get the thing off. So I've never had a problem, so I'm gonna take it off and leave it off. All right, guys. So we're pretty close to like halfway done this job now. So this actually hasn't been too bad. None of the studs have been seized on or anything lame like that. So now kind of what we're gonna do here, we're gonna sort of prep to put the new turbo in. What I gotta do is take off this whole exhaust. It's mounted at the back, so I'm gonna drop it, completely remove that exhaust. I'm gonna take these, one bolt right there, one bolt right there. I'm gonna take this bracket out like I said. And then once I have that, here's the oil input line. So this is the feed to the turbo. So as you can see, if you follow the line, it wraps underneath this oil filter relocation thing here. And it goes, if I can fit my GoPro down here, you can see there's the banjo bolt tucked down in there. That's the one that feeds to the block. So first I'm going to remove this bracket, and then what I can probably do is actually crack this nut right here, or sorry, bolt, and that's actually going to give me the ability to move this coolant line. So here's the coolant line that feeds the water pump, or vice versa, the water pump feeds that line, whatever, I don't care. Yeah, so once we take that off, we'll be able to just move it. You don't have to like completely break it or move it crazy, just enough so you can kind of get a wrench in there to remove that banjo bolt holding the oil feed to the block. So that's our next step. We're gonna want to, now that we have everything out, we're gonna want to install our new oil feed line, which is this one right here, like I said. So that's kind of what we're gonna have to do before we do anything else, is get that line in place. And then honestly, once we're done that, we can kind of start putting the 15G back in. So yeah, we're gonna have to deal with like the oil line and that kind of thing. But realistically, it shouldn't be too tough. I'll show you guys a couple tricks that I use with a rubber line and stuff, and it won't be too bad. So what I noticed while trying to do this was you're not going to be able to get this banjo bolt out for the oil feed to the block without removing this big nut right here. Actually, sorry, the big bolt. So this thing's like huge. I don't even know what size it is because I didn't have something big enough. So I actually used like channel locks. Oh gosh, it didn't strip anything. That's all I had. So luckily I was able to break it free with that. So now that I got that loose right there, I was able to basically pull this away from the block a little bit, and it gives me just enough room to slide a wrench down in there and crack this loose. So I'm gonna start like twisting it out. We'll see if I have enough room to actually pull that banjo bolt out. I'm not too sure. We'll have to see how far I can get it out, if it's actually just going to completely come out, or if I'm going to actually have to completely remove this bolt. I left it threaded in a bit because in the past it's been really tough to get that back threaded in. I don't know why. Maybe I just didn't do it right, but yeah, so I'm going to leave that threaded in for a bit. I should have enough room. I'm going to twist that banjo bolt out of the block, and then that'll basically remove our oil feed line, and we can replace it with our new one. And then after that, I'm just going to take this exhaust out, and then we're ready to put our new 15G in. So once I get that oil line out and I put the new one in, I'm going to have to kind of decide where to route it. I'm thinking I'm probably going to do the same thing, most likely go underneath the oil filter relocation and probably wrap it around up like this. This line kind of goes around this way, right? But you know, maybe we can wrap it around this side of the turbo instead of coming up over here. We'll see when we get there. I'm not too sure how I'm going to do it yet. We're going to route it when the turbo's in place. We're going to get the aftermarket line at least connected to the block because it's way easier. I don't even think you could do it if the turbo was in place. So we'll get it connected to the block, and then we will install the new turbo manifold, and it'll just be flopping around, so we'll be able to kind of route it however we like, whatever has enough room and is out of the way of exhaust and stuff like that. Yeah, so okay, I'm gonna do that, and then I'll film the next step. All right, guys, so that was actually probably the hardest part of this job so far, to be honest, was putting this oil feed line in. The reason being is just really difficult to line up that banjo bolt with the copper washer. It kept sliding out on me before I could get that banjo bolt in the block. But as you can see, that's the new one. I've routed the line above this. I don't think it really matters. It's kind of just going to sort of come up around like that and then go into the top of the turbo like that. So either or, you can do it however you like. So that's all snug now. I got this big oil filter relocation bolt. That's all tight again. So unfortunately I didn't get new manifold gaskets. I have reused these exhaust manifold gaskets before with no problems. It's probably what I'm going to do here. Lordco or the auto parts store is closed right now, so I can't get another set. If it leaks, I'll throw a new set in for Scott. It's not too big of a deal. Now that we have those heat shields gone, it's actually way easier to remove the manifold if we want now. Plus, we're not putting that bracket on the bottom. So now, if we need to remove the turbo, it's going to be a piece of cake. Realistically, I tackled all like the more difficult aspects of it already. So I guess we can slide our new turbo in. So I'm going to do that right now. I'll set up the GoPro and kind of just film how I do it. Nothing really, there's no trick to it. You just kind of get it all mounted up. And then we'll start connecting our coolant lines. We'll connect our oil feed. Then we got to do our downpipe. And this is getting pretty close to completion here. So it'll be cool to hear what it sounds like all started up. Actually, I am doing a set of white T5 injectors in this car for Scott. I'm gonna get to that tomorrow. I'm kind of over wrenching today, to be honest. So yeah, let's do that. We'll put the turbo in right now and see how that goes. Sorry, before we do that, I forgot one thing. We're gonna want to set up our oil return line. So how I'm going to do this, guys, is the stock line is a full hard line. So I actually cut it. Here's the bottom half of the stock line. So this is a flex tube right from the oil return at the turbo right here. So it's just clamped on there. No big deal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the stock O-ring in here. It's actually still in the block. It stayed in there while I pulled this out. So what I'm gonna put that in, and then I'm gonna silicone this into there. So I'll crawl under there and show you guys. But basically, it's gonna sit like that, and then I'm just gonna take the end of this, slide it over, put a clamp on it, and call it a day. It should be pretty good as long as I get the clamp all good and you know, line it up nicely so it's not kind of like pulling it in any weird way. It shouldn't leak. I've had these leak on the bottom where the O-ring is because it wasn't pressed in good enough. But we're gonna try to avoid that. We're gonna sauce it in there with a bit of silicone just to be safe, and it should sit in the right spot. I might have to cut this line down. I'm not too sure how it's gonna line up when I'm under there, but I will get to that. I'll take some, you know, whatever and hack that off, and yeah, then we'll slide over there. Pretty easy to do the oil return, nothing too crazy. Let's crawl under here right now and see what we can do as far as the oil return line into the block. Okay, I don't got a whole lot of lighting here, sorry guys, but this little hole right here, that's the opening to the... So, oh, this is kind of weird actually. This oil filter is kind of... I'm gonna have to redo that. Oh, okay, there we go. There we go. So yeah, that actually does go pretty good. So that's gonna slide in there like that. It actually does slide in, and then if I have this at the right angle, once the turbo's in, I'll be able to slide the flex line over here, put a clamp around it, and call her a day. Yeah, so it's definitely going to be a good idea to silicone this. I'll pull the little washer out right now. So here it is. It's just one of these like orange rubber O-rings, basically is all it is. It's kind of a square shape. So it's not exactly like, I've gone to the local auto parts store and they couldn't find this they couldn't find this square shaped O-ring for me. So I actually had to go to Volvo one time. They charged me $25 for this. Dealership pricing on parts is absurd, but they get you because, you know, if you need something, you need it right then and there. So yeah, it slides on like that, it presses into the block. I'm going to kind of lather up this whole thing with silicone, and then it's going to have a good seal. As long as there's some sort of pressure being applied, pressing that into the block, you should be good. The only time I've had them leak was when I accidentally I put a Garrett turbo on one of my other cars, and that actually made this line slightly too short. I didn't realize that, and basically I didn't have the O-ring nice and pressed in there, so it ended up popping out and a bunch of oil leaked out. Like if this O-ring pops out, you're gonna have a lot of oil coming out. So make sure you get that nice and tucked in there, and you won't have a problem with leaks. Should be good to go. All right, guys, so we're gonna slap this turbo in now. It should actually be a piece of cake. We just gotta make sure we got our oil line on the right side of the filter. So tuck that under there. Kind of get this into place. There we go. Nothing to it really. What I should do is probably, if I can get this oil line underneath everything. See what we can do here. There we go. Yeah, so if you guys can see on the GoPro there, that's actually perfect. Yeah, I like that a lot. That's really good. Okay. So yeah, as you can see, this oil line will come up and feed right into the top there. So no problems. That's working out better than I thought it would actually. All right, so that's good. Yeah, I'll start putting my manifold nuts on, get everything nice and tight. I have my flexi line down there, so I'm gonna deal with the oil return once I'm down there under the car and this is all mounted up in its place. So I can start putting coolant lines on, all the basic stuff, right? Yeah, there's not a whole lot left. We just got to put the downpipe on. Did I forget anything there? Yeah, so if you guys see on this downpipe here, we have a wideband sensor, so I'm actually going to take that out. I should have got a plug. So maybe for now I can actually just leave that in for Scott, and we can find a plug later. That's not a huge deal. I probably should have got a plug, but hey, what can you do? Yeah, because you don't want an open bung just shooting exhaust out there, right? So yeah, we're going to take that out, and I believe one of them is the stock O2, so that'd be this one here. So stock O2 is going to obviously stay. We're just going to use the one that was from this car. This was from an LH 2.2 car, but I believe yes, they are. The O2 sensors are all the same, just a Bosch 3-wire, pretty basic kind of O2 sensor. So yeah, good to go. We'll start putting stuff back together. All right, guys, so I actually just got a little bit carried away there. I buttoned everything up. I actually connected all the hoses and stuff. Realistically, putting this back together is obviously just the reverse of putting it or taking it apart. I'm just gonna crawl under here real quickly and show you guys what I did with the oil return line. This is not how I would like it right now. I'm gonna put a clamp on here, but as you can see, here's our flexi line and here's our hard line. I hope you guys can see on this GoPro. It's not the greatest for dark light situations. But yeah, so this is pressed into the block with that squarish rubber O-ring that I was telling you guys about. And then it's basically this soft line slid over top of that. I'm gonna get a clamp on that, and that should be good to go. If it's not, then I'm just gonna have to press that into the block a bit better, have a better clamp on it. But really, there's only 2 spots it can leak, so should be good to go. Let me crawl up from under here. Woo. So we got the man Turbo Scott here. Yeah, this is his car. So yeah, dude, I think we're ready to start this up. Are you fired up about your 15G, Scott?
It's almost time to spool hard. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
It was fucking blown when we got it, so I'm super excited.
Yeah, dude. So yeah, like Scott just said there, his Garrett turbo was smoking pretty bad. So yeah, Scott's actually rocking the drifts and lifts Volvo Drift Logger.
If you don't have one, get one.
Yeah, if you don't got one, get one. That's for sure. Great way to support the channel, guys. Yeah, we got those shirts. The link to the Drifts and Lifts store is in the description of this video, so check it out. We got the Volvo Drift Lager, Pilsner, Ale, and Stout. All different beer flavors, all different Volvos. So yeah, we're actually gonna fire this thing up right now. I'm just gonna tighten one more clamp right here, and Scott's gonna turn the key, and we're gonna see how this sounds. I'm actually really stoked. This is gonna be dope. All right, guys, so Turbo Scott's gonna fire this thing up right now. Let's see how this 15G sounds. Hopefully it fires up. It's got oil in it, it's got coolant in it.
2, 1. Downpipe life again.
Oh yeah, it sounds a little different with that like turbo on it. Yeah. What's that? Oh yeah. That is awesome. Everything's good. Starts up. I'm just gonna check the oil return line to see if it leaks. All right, guys. So there you go. That's a 15G swap on a 1990 Volvo 740 turbo. So things to note for the whole swap. I'm pretty sure I covered almost everything I could. If you guys have a detail that I missed, mention it in the comments and I'll put that in the description. I think that's pretty much everything. The clocking of the turbo, those couple studs on the manifold, the one stud that goes downwards, you got to remember that. Pretty much, you know, it's as far as turbo swaps go, like I've done a turbo swap on a Pontiac Solstice GXP. I've done a turbo swap on, I think, just Volvos other than that. Actually, that was the only other turbo swap I did, but that was way more difficult. These cars are pretty straightforward. There's just a couple little things that you need to know before like diving into it. The reclocking of the 15G is one, or else you're going to put your turbo in and be like, oh shit, now I can't put my boost hoses on. But yeah, I think I pretty much covered everything, guys. I hope that helps out for anybody that wants to do a turbo swap themselves. You know, hopefully, you know, giving back to the Volvo community because you guys have done a lot for me. I appreciate it. So yeah, I think that's about it. We're gonna go for a test drive in another video. It's getting a little bit dark out here. But yeah, Turbo Scott is up and running. His car is good to go. Basically, the only thing wrong with this was the turbo. We fixed the tranny problem. So hopefully this turbo is good to go. It was rebuilt at one point. It does have some kilometers since that rebuild, but these turbos are known to go like 300,000 kilometers, right? So this thing should be good for essentially as long as the car is going to live. Again, make sure to check out the Drifts and Lifts store. Get your Volvo Drift, AO Lager, Volvo Drift beer merchandise. Yeah, I appreciate everyone who has bought in that stuff. It's a great way to support me and the channel and my projects, and all that stuff costs money, right? Even though it is a Volvo, it's on the budget, still costs money. So yeah, I think we're going to end it right there, guys. Stay tuned for a lot more Volvo drifting action. We're going to the Matsuri, the Drift Union Matsuri, in about 11 days now, 12 days. So we got a little bit of time to go. I'm going to do the trailing arm bushings on Miss Huff. I'm going to be doing a video of that. Another thing, sorry, I got to mention this. We're going to be doing the white T5 injectors on Scott's car. I'm going to do that in a separate video. Another really easy little budget upgrade. It's kind of cool because the white injectors come from a Volvo S70 T5. So like a 15G turbo as well as a 16T turbo. The 16T turbo is very similar to the 15G we just put in Scott's car. There's not a whole lot of difference. The S70 had the 16T, 850 had the 15G. The S70 comes with the T5 injectors, so you can actually pull the turbo and the injectors off that car and put them on a red block, and you'll make quite a bit more power. White injectors, you'll do 17, 18 pounds of boost maxed out. They're a little bit bigger. They're 350cc instead of a 305, 310cc that the green red block injectors are. So yeah, again, good little upgrade. So I think we're going to end it there, guys. Like and subscribe for hard-boiled Volvo eggs. Peace out.